always great catching up with my next guest, Grant Dawson, who does not have a fight booked, but we're here to get an update. We haven't seen him since that matchup against Bobby Green back in October. Grant, how are you? How's everything going on this Monday?
Man, everything's good with me, man. Thank you for having me on. You're actually the first person to ask me to do an interview with them. You know, when you win, everybody wants to interview you. When you lose, no one gives a shit about you. So I appreciate that.
I definitely give a shit. Going back to the RFA days, right? That's when we did our first one, which has been a while. How long have you been back in the gym? I know I've been kind of seeing updates and all that.
I mean, I took a week off, you know, standard. They really make you take a week off. And then I didn't spar or go live for about another 2 or 3 weeks just to let my, you know, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I feel great, but you never know. Just let it rest. There's no reason to rush back into getting hit in the head again. So, you know, we took that time off. I'm back to sparring now. Everything's feeling great. You know, I'm not like having headaches. I'm not anything that I've done a lot of research on concussions. I'm not, no signs of concussion. So super happy about that. And honestly, man, I've been begging my manager to get me another fight. You know, I feel like there's two types of guys when they come off the losses: the guys that disappear for 10 years and you know, try to find themselves, whatever that means, and then the guys that get back in, you know, right away, get back on the horse and want to get after it. And that's the type of guy I want to be.
What happened in that last fight? Was you got caught? Like, you've had a chance, I'm sure, to reflect on everything. How do you look at that performance, and what can you learn from that you bring into the next one?
Man, you know, I got beat, and that's okay. You know, I took a chance against an unranked guy, and I came up short. And you know, the internet can give me as much shit as they want about it. I wouldn't have changed a single thing. Knowing what I know, I would still go out there and try to beat Bobby Green. I didn't get into this sport to be perfect. And if I did, I definitely wouldn't have joined the UFC, because there's just no way that you can fight at this high of a level and be the winning guy every single time. If you play long enough, you're going to get got. And I got. So it's good. I'm right back in there. I'm not discouraged. I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to change a million things. I'm not blaming anybody. It happens. I'm good with it. Let's move on. Let's get back in there.
How did you deal with the negativity?
You know, you just ignore it, move on. There's really nothing you can do. I've actually been doing a lot of research just for my own curiosity. I've been doing a lot of research into like the psychology behind people that talk a bunch of trash online and stuff like that, and it's actually quite interesting. But as far as I'm concerned, these guys, they're not even real people. They don't
like an enhanced version of themselves because they're anonymous most of the time, right?
All the time. The dude with a blocked account is the bravest dude on planet Earth. So it's like, I don't, or a private account. Not a blocked account. Private account shows how much I'm on social media. But dude, they're really not real people, because if social media didn't exist, I would have no clue about any of these comments or anything like that. It's not a real place. It's not with real people. And 99% of them wouldn't say a single word to me in person. Nobody in person has had a bad word to say. Actually, that's not true. Quick story for you. Let's hear it. I went to I can't remember, Iowa. I think I went to Iowa for a buddy of mine, Dakota Bush. He was fighting. He helped me a bunch with the Bobby Green fight, which thanks a lot, you know. But no, I'm just kidding. So I went to Iowa to help corner him, and this one lady came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm Ricky Glenn's cousin, who I had also fought, and I actually went to a brawl with him." And I was like, "Oh, it's very nice to meet you." And she goes, "Why'd you let Bobby do that to you?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't really let him. He kind of just did it to me." And then she goes, "Huh? Can I get a picture?" And I was like, "Sure, you can get a picture."
Good on you, though. So, you take the high road, yeah.
Yeah, other than Ricky Glenn's cousin, everybody's been great to me in person. Life hasn't changed a bit for me. I made more money losing to Bobby than I did beating Demir. So I would have done everything. Knowing what I know, I would do everything the exact same way.
Just one last thing on the Green fight. It seemed like the weight cut wasn't an issue this time. There was no, obviously at the scale. Did you feel like this was one of the better weight cuts you had? Because you look great on the scale.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things, dude. I wish I could tell. I had a terrible camp. I didn't. I had a great camp. Absolutely phenomenal camp. Terrible weight cut. Nope. Great weight cut. Easiest weight cut I've had, honestly. I wish I could tell you I was super, super nervous in the back. I was the normal amount of nervous. It wasn't like, oh my God, my first main event. I don't screw this. I felt fine. I just went in and lost, man. It absolutely happens. And to be honest with you, it's one of my favorite things about this sport is the guy who's supposed to win, the big favorite, doesn't always win. I am going to fight Islam Makhachev someday for the UFC lightweight championship, and I'm probably going to be a plus 1,600 underdog. Should I just not try? Should I just not go out there and give it a shot? No, I should absolutely go out there and try, because the person that is supposed to win doesn't always win. And that's one of the things that makes this sport so great.
Green ended up fighting Jalin Turner, who I know someone was kind of in the mix of when you got your fight with Bobby. He ended up losing, and there was obviously that referee stoppage. What was going through your head when you saw that? Because that was pretty late.
Yeah, real quick about the fight. I told anybody that would listen is that Turner was going to win that fight. 100% I knew Turner was going to win that fight. Bobby's best weapon, at least when I fought him, was I had no clue when I was in range. Like he controls his range so good. And I struggle with range control already being a grappler, but his range control was just ridiculous. I felt in danger the entire fight, like so good at that. With Jalin Turner, he's so big and he's so long and he's so powerful. It doesn't matter if he's in range because you're always going to be in his range. So I said that he was going to win that fight. And that's actually a fight that I would love to get, kind of, beat the guy that beat me, or beat the guy that beat the guy that beat me kind of situation. So I would absolutely love that fight. As for the stoppage, that's one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen in MMA. I have nothing against Bobby at all. Like, it was not hard watching that, but it was definitely, I would have preferred not to have seen that happen.
What did you think of Arman's win in the main event, knocking up Beneil Dariush? Were you expecting that going in? I know he does train at ATT.
Yeah, Arman, as you know, I wouldn't say we're friends, but he's always been real good to me. I'm super happy for the guy. I think that he should get a title shot next. I don't think there should be any, there shouldn't be no him and Gaethje. There should be no him and Dustin. I think he should get the next title shot after Charles. And looked phenomenal. I did not expect. I thought he was going to win, but I did not think he was going to win by knockout in under a minute or something like that. And he was also dealing with an injury going into that fight that a lot of people don't know about. So that's even more impressive what he did. Super, super happy for him. Just really good ATT talent right there.
How would the rematch with him and Islam go? Because obviously Arman's leveled up a lot. So is Islam. We're seeing the stand-up like we saw him knock out Volk in the last fight. What do you think of that?
Sure, man. I don't know. That's a really good question. A lot of people are looking at this is the thing that I hate about MMA is a lot of people are looking at Islam's last performance and they're saying, oh my goodness, he's unbeatable because he beat Volkanovski. They forget that Volkanovski took that fight on 11 days notice or whatever it was. And they also forget that the fight, literally Islam's fight before his last fight, was Volkanovski with a full camp. And a lot of people thought he lost the fight. I'm not one of those people, but a lot of people thought he lost the fight to a 45er who's now all of the sudden washed up. So it's like if you put somebody like Arman in there who is similar to Volkanovski, not in a striking sense, but in a wrestling sense, very durable, very short, very compact and strong. It could be very interesting. I think he has all the tools to beat Islam. I really don't know. I don't think Islam's invincible. I really don't. He's good. He's damn good. But I just don't think he's invincible.
Back to you. When are you looking to fight next? Like when would be, like you said, you've been asking your manager, is there any kind of timeline you think we could end up seeing you back in there?
Yeah, they've kind of given me a name that they're working on, and then they gave me a preferred date, but not. I would like to fight in January, but now it's looking more like February. But honestly, just I have a goal of fighting 3 times next year. Like that is my goal. Fighting 3 times, winning 3 times, and hopefully by the beginning of 2025, being back to where I was. Before I lost to Bobby, it sucks losing, it's probably going to take me a year to maybe 2 years to get back to where I was, but I'm willing to do the work. I really hope that my goal for 2024 is Diego Fajeda, Matt Favola, and then Jalin Turner, and hopefully be right back to being the guy that everybody's talking about.
I know you probably can't say who they're working on as far as a name, but is it a ranked opponent or someone near the rankings? Like, can you give me a hint here?
It's one of the guys that I just mentioned. None of that is set. Like there's nothing. It's just what we're working on.
Yeah,
So,
working on it. Yeah, for sure.
so
No, I know, especially these accounts now, they're like, oh, something's like a done deal when it's like, it's being discussed, right? So
it's not, well, that's why I want to make sure, because there's going to be a post tomorrow about me fighting, Diego Fajeda, and then I'm going to get matched up against
someone
Terrence McKenna,
else.
thing
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's who we're working on, though.
Yeah. No, got to be clear about that. 296 this Saturday. A lot to talk about. I wanted to ask you first, what do you make of all this Ian Garry stuff? Like he's a big favorite against Luque. They're former teammates. Gary's used to train in Florida at the rival gym there. Do you think that will be a distraction for him going in?
Man, I don't know. I'm not a big Ian Garry fan, like at all. I really don't like how he handled the Neil Magny situation. I really did not like how he handled the Jeff Neal situation. And then, but you got to make money, so I get it. But then somebody dishes it out on you, and you start talking about getting the law involved and suing, and it's like, just how can you make yourself look like less of a man? Even more, you know what I mean? Like, just shut up, dude. Nobody cares, and he's really kind of shooting himself in the foot. I actually think that Luque will beat him, and I thought that Luque would beat him before all of this happened. I just think Luque is a higher level guy. I'm not sold on Ian Garry. I think that he definitely has some skill, and he definitely has some potential to do a lot of really good things. I just don't see him being the next Conor McGregor that everybody thinks he is. The biggest thing too is you see these guys that kind of get kicked out of gyms, and there's a lot of bad things told about them in gyms, and I just don't see them lasting very long, because it's really hard to get set in good skill and like start creating bonds and relationships with training partners, which makes you a better fighter if everybody hates your guts. And right now, I don't see anybody saying a nice word about Ian Garry. So I would definitely advise him to maybe take a step back and kind of remember why you're doing this. Selling the fight is great. The thing I don't like about it is when you're not yourself, you always have to one up the guy from the last fight. So, I said this last fight, I got to go even bigger to make sure people are still excited about me. I think that's what Paddy Pimblett is doing wrong too, is like Paddy's going to start going a little crazy, I think, here, because he's always got to one up himself from his last, big, whatever it was,
Being in Florida, I know you're not at Killcliff, you're at ATT, but did you hear anything about Garry and some issues at the gym? Because I only started hearing this after the fact about him showing up late and like him filming and all this stuff from his teammates, or his former teammates, I should say.
Yeah, I definitely think that, when somebody's on your team, the first thing you do is you keep discretion. So like there's guys on at ATT that I don't like the way they train, and I don't think that they're, good training partners, but I would never say who they are. I would never say anything bad, because they're my teammates, and I will respect their privacy, and I hope that they would respect mine. As soon as you leave the gym, that goes out the window, like you betray a gym or you get kicked out of the gym, it's like, all right, well, F that guy. So I hadn't heard anything up until and honestly, I've actually heard the opposite before this whole situation happened. I heard people saying good things about him in the gym, and now this happened, everybody's saying he's a terrible training partner. So you never really know which one it is. But I'm just worried about me, and I'm gonna be tuning in Saturday for sure. Whether or not Ian Garry was on the card, I'm tuning in because it's such a fantastic card.
Main event, Cobly Leon. How do you see that fight going?
Oh man. I actually think it's a lot closer of a fight than people think it is. I think that Cobly can put up a really, really good fight. Leon can be taken down. The hard part is keeping him down. And I think that Cobly could do a really good job of just take him down, punch, 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 take him down, punch, punch, punch. Gun to my head, I got to take Leon. You have to take the guy because he beat the guy that he's fighting. So it's like, you got to take Leon. But I actually think this is a really close fight. I don't know exactly who. No gun to my head, I have no idea who's going to win.
Well, let me ask you this. Leon's the favorite. Do you think that's the correct line? Is that people are making him the favorite in the fight over Cobly?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. I was just curious about that.
You have to he beat Usman twice. Usman beat Covington twice. Both fights pretty fairly. So you have to do that. If I was a betting man and I had, billions of dollars, I would put money on Cobly.
What did you make of the PFL buying Bellator and because a lot of uncertainty what they're going to do with it? What was sort of your reaction to hearing everything?
It's bad for MMA, man. I actually am very worried for MMA outside the UFC. I think that it's dying. I think that MMA outside of UFC is dying sport, and that really scares me. I don't think it'll affect me because I think that I'll be done fighting by the time this becomes a big issue. But I definitely think that the UFC is the only promotion that can really fix this, and I just don't see them wanting to do that until it's a big issue. So,
okay,
it's for me.
Well said. Why do you think that is? Just because there's such few opportunities. It seems like had there been a Bellator, you're right, there'd be more places for people to fight, and one championship. I know a lot of the fighters are on the shelf. What's sort of your take on that? You just think there won't be enough slots for all the fighters that are out there?
Well, the problem is one, the UFC is so overpacked with talent right now. There's, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's over 400 fighters in the UFC alone. That's insanity. No matter how many cards, the max amount of cards you can have a year is 52. So it's and they don't, they don't do one every weekend. They do one most weekends, but not every weekend. So then there's just guys that are not going to be busy. It's already hard to find people fight. And the thing that I'm noticing outside the UFC, because the UFC is doing a great job. I have no complaints about what the UFC is doing. They're keeping all of us busy and getting us paid. I'm super happy about that. Outside the UFC, it's tough. My buddy Dakota Bush right now is trying to get back into the UFC. He's fighting tooth and nail to get back in the UFC. Nobody wants to fight him because nobody wants to fight a tough dude for $300. So it's just, and if you've got to take care of your record. You've got to make sure that everything looks, spick and span. So nobody wants to fight anybody. So now people aren't getting as good, and they're also getting signed to Contender Series with 4 friggin' fights. So they have no experience. They get into the UFC, they go 0-2, and they get cut. It's just, and then once they get cut, what do they do? Where do they go? There's literally nowhere for them to go. PFL doesn't want anybody because they just bought all of Bellator. Bellator's got an influx of fighters. The only way I could see that the UFC needs to save the sport of MMA again, and the way that they need to do it is they need to do what the WWE does, is they need to have smaller promotions that they fund. So it's make Contender Series a show that's year round. Don't make it you win a fight, you get signed to Contender Series. There's a belt, there's a weight class, you get 5 and 5 to show up, which is enough, to get people excited about that. And then when you need guys, you just pick them from those slots. But it's a scary situation for outside of the UFC right now.
I always wondered why they never did that with WEC, use that as a feeder organization where you could still have veterans. Let's say there's a fighter that's really good and maybe just had some bad luck in the UFC and they need to go down to the minors, so to speak. You could put them on that card with a prospect or something, what do you think of that idea of having a feeder system for the UFC where you have a mix of veterans and prospects?
Yeah, I love it. You take, so they bought Strikeforce, WEC, and I think they bought one more, but I can't remember.
Pride. They bought Pride. Yeah.
Oh, Pride. So what you maybe not Pride because it's in a different country, but what you do is you take the guys you wanted. You take your Masvidals from Strikeforce, you take your Mike Browns from WEC, and then you let other guys fight in those promotions to grow. And you start, maybe not back then, but Lord knows they got the money now. Mm-hmm. They can start other promotions and just start building guys. And then also too, you have guys that you want. So Aaron Pico, for example, who was a big prospect, and Bellator was the guys that ended up getting him. If you have those smaller shows, let's just say the Contender Series was a year-round show. It's every Tuesday, all year round. You grab somebody like Aaron Pico, who's 0-0. You put him in Contender Series. You let him fight. Not bums, but guys his level, also 0-0 guys, and you build him up. Yeah. Pretty soon he's 15-1 or whatever it is, and then you're all right, he's our Contender Series champion. Sign him to the UFC. Maybe even throw him against a top 15 guy because he's got a bunch of experience fighting on this high level. It's just, there's ways to grow this sport, and I just don't think the UFC is interested in doing it right now. But at some point, long after I'm dead, they're going to have to, because the sport of MMA outside the UFC just does not make money like it used to.
Yeah, well said. Last question. Any plans for the holidays? You going back to Nebraska? Are you doing anything? What do you got planned?
No, we're staying in Florida. We're staying here until we get a fight. So
Right.
that
Okay. Yeah, I see. Kind of on standby. Yeah, that makes sense. So.
I don't want to, and my family's kind of in a weird position right now. So like the holidays are going to be a little slim this year for everybody. So if you're going to miss a holiday, it's going to be this year. We will go and visit after my next fight.
There you go. That makes sense. Grant, thanks for doing this, man. Glad I got to be the first guy to talk to you after your last fight. If there's anyone you'd like to thank before we get out of here, sponsors, social media, as always, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, the thing I just want to say, man, is thank you to my coaches. Everybody always says when you lose, you find out who your real friends are. And I have found out that everybody I thought was my real friend has been. So I really appreciate everybody sticking by me, especially my coach, Mike Brown, and Thiago Alves. These guys have put a lot into me, a lot of time, a lot of effort into me. And they both have told me still they believe that I'm going to be a world champion someday. And I absolutely believe that I will beat Islam Makhachev someday. So I just can't wait to get back in there and prove how much better I'm getting every single day.